And what could be a sign of further escalation of tensions in the Horn of Africa region? Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud has now embarked on a working visit to Eritrea on Monday. He is expected to hold talks with his counterpart, Isaias Afwerki, in Asmara. Mohamud, of course, was in Eritrea 3 months ago, where he also inspected Somali troops that have been receiving military training in the country. Let's move on to Sudan now. The country is waiting to see what will come from a recent diplomatic tour by the leader of the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo. Now, the RSF have been embroiled in a near 9-month conflict with the military. Thousands have been killed so far and millions displaced since April. Now, Dagalo's tour was condemned by the leader of the military government, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who also ruled out any negotiations with his bitter rival. Naba Mohideen tells us more from Port Sudan.
The RSF leader's shuttle diplomacy that saw him visit several African countries has triggered different reactions in Sudan. Some believe it's a sign of a potential breakthrough and could push peace talks forward. However, Sudan's army leader, General Burhan, has criticized countries which hosted Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo.
Hemeti left Sudan through Chad and toured countries including UAE, Uganda, Ethiopia, Ghana, and recently Djibouti.
Dagalo, who is often known as Hemeti, also visited Rwanda and South Africa, and has met with Sudan's political leaders and said his paramilitary troops are open to an immediate ceasefire.
Hemeti's visits to neighboring countries is an effort to add legitimacy to his accused forces, and it's been preceded by signing a pact with the deposed Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok and the civilian front. Hemeti needs more than diplomacy to face the public anger and rejection.
And on Friday, General Burhan said he would not negotiate with the RSF because of crimes he says the group has committed during the conflict. The United States has accused both of the army and the RSF of war crimes. Experts say any negotiations face major challenges.
The indicators on the ground show a possible military escalation, so a political resolution built on the negotiation is a must now. But it must be based on the outcomes of Jeddah principles that prioritize the withdrawal of the RSF from residential areas.
Despite the contradictory stances by the warring factions, people in Sudan want to see peace restored in the country soon. Any failure of upcoming peace talks would only prolong the misery and suffering of millions of people displaced by the conflict. Naba Mohideen, CGTN, Port Sudan.
Well, let's now bring in Joseph Ucheno, who's a writer and an African affairs analyst, to discuss this further. Joseph, great to have you with us. He, of course, is joining us via Zoom from Uganda's capital, Kampala. Joseph, now, al-Burhan has essentially rejected the RSF's latest proposals for peace and any talk of reconciliation at all. Both leaders, they've been on these regional tours with the aim to try to find a path to peace. Have these tours been effective? And were there other underlying reasons for these tours then?
I think it's a difficult one to tell, but quite clearly from the RSF's position, they seem to be presenting themselves as almost de facto incoming possible leaders of Sudan. For them to be received in the key countries, both including my own native Uganda, and particularly Rwanda, and then, much more importantly for me, is a good photo opportunity with the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, cannot be anything else short of simply saying that we're a potential government in waiting. But of course, it's very interesting that the incumbent decides to declare that there's going to be no possibility of peace talks, considering that actually these are two governments competing for power and there's been a stalemate in over 12 months. I don't really know what the solution is to peace talks. So maybe it may be this occasion that Hemeti has actually scored 1 versus 0 on the other side. That said, really, I don't see really how this can be resolved without necessarily having a negotiated settlement. Nor is it the case that in this very particular case, one side can claim that there's a possibility that they will win militarily. It's unforeseeable. Maybe the good news could be that the African leaders who are receiving Hemeti might actually be trying to persuade him to seek a peaceful settlement and perhaps sending a message to Khartoum that there's no alternative to roundtable negotiations. That is not the detail that I have though at this material time.
Well, let's delve a little further into the tours because, like you said, this is a tough situation to figure out. When you listen to the arguments from both leaders, Dagalo and al-Burhan, what role are they sort of looking to Sudan's neighbors to play and other, of course, influential parties such as South Africa to play in bringing peace to the country?
It's extremely unfortunate because in the absence of DR Congo, Sudan was generally the most powerful and most influential country in our region. To consider that at this time is one, either failed state almost nearly, or two, a state with true governing authorities. This possibly, as a by the by, the fact that RSF came in from merely an organized militia designed by the president to present as an alternative port of military strength and power, security strength and power in an independent nation state, that turns out now to break the country into two, means that neighboring countries must be very concerned. South Sudan is in itself very unstable. DR Congo, notwithstanding the election that I had the other day, is neither here nor there. My native Uganda, there is only stability, is the longevity of the incumbent. By and large, this is not a region where you can say that, it's in their interest to have a volatile neighbors, particularly a country like Sudan. So it's absolutely in the interest of the East African region, including leaders from the Horn. In fact, your program was referring to Eritrea, referring to Somalia, referring to the conflict with Ethiopia, meaning that this is a region, a sub-region, in fact, that requires peace and stability. And every peace dividend, which is accrued from any of the neighboring countries, is important. So from the Sudanese perspective, it's important for the people of Sudan, but it's extremely important for the people of this region. So yes, this then brings the question of leadership on the continent.